We've got a keynote speaker here today, Christoph, who works at Futurease. So, Christoph's one of the tech leads and the project lead there. Very exciting consultancy, and he would like to, I suppose, run through transforming corporate workflows into data-driven processes. So, Christoph, I'll leave it with you to start.
Hello, everybody. My name is Christoph Nützel. I'm working at Futurease, and I will shortly open my presentation. I hope you can see that, everybody.
Yes, we can see it, yeah.
Okay. I want to talk about transforming corporate workflows and data-driven processes. A reality check, a little bit telling about a project we're running at our company without naming the client, the concrete tasks on hand, but the general topics we faced, struggles, and things we learned. So about Futurease, we are like a company, 650 people roughly, Nordic roots, meaning founded in Helsinki, now also being in Berlin, Munich, and Stuttgart, and also London. And I'm at the Munich office working from there. Today, I'm not in Munich, I'm in Ismaning, where I live. These are some of our clients. I think some are really sounding familiar, like BMW, Ford, or Volkswagen, but also some of them are very Nordic based, and not everybody will probably know them. But we have a variety of portfolio of clients and topics. So what I will focus today is about first highlighting the problem we faced and encountered with our client, the idea how we should tackle that, the actions we took, and the learnings we take away. So the problem we faced is basically we had the client who's working in very much silos like marketing and sales, research and development, and starting with the year 2000, they started to spinning up their own products, iterated over them, having everybody had different kind of vendors doing their services, supporting them, some were in-house made, but they all had one in common. So there is an Excel sheet. This Excel sheet is that input into a program or a product, and it gives you another Excel sheet back. That's basically where a lot of corporates in Germany still have their workflows hidden. So they also take these Excel sheets to the next product in the next department, and sometimes people filling out directly data or working on Excel sheets. And also they are sharing Excel sheets between different departments and having an owner or sometimes not an owner. And as you can already see, this creates not a real structure. So what is actually happening in there? Even though that's just an example, it's the reality that a lot of companies depending on that. And how they do that, it actually is they really very well know how it works in the details. So they know what is in the Excel sheet, the person who's working with the Excel sheet, but no one outside. So a lot of companies got audited the last years regarding ISO certifications, regarding data privacy. Also in corporates, a big topic. And they realized that they have no clue how their workflow is working from a big picture. They're knowing data A goes to data B, and then it's coming data C. So, but there is no clear indication how much your data is, what is happening there. So they don't trust in the data quality. So it's unclear the data, the problem is the service, the problem they're using, is the user the problem. So always the discussions are, what is the problem? And you are just there for solving bugs. They're investigating data if it has any bugs, and not concentrating on be innovative. So the question is also, what about the tech landscape then? What are struggles there? What is happening there? How can they produce still other products, for example, cars or airplanes? So the problem is also resonating there. They're having a diverse landscape of tools. Their architecture is from monolithic structure from 2000 until modern microservice architecture from 2020 or in between, and there are bottlenecks, and it's super unclear how the thing is working. So you cannot help other people's as well and find your own problems in the services because you don't know how they work. You have no clear indication how services are working because they are hidden in the different repositories about clients. For example, we used first our own enterprise GitHub. The client has one where some vendors are working, other vendors use their own, and third ones use Bitbucket. So how do you know where the problem is? Is it a service you're using from somebody else? Is it your fault? Is it the data? So the problem were piling up. Also, it was very hard for some vendors to really get from idea to solution. So there is the problem. We have an idea to solve it, but how do you do it when you have no clear way to have a continuous integration and delivery? So there was no out-of-box setup, or at least instructions. There was no modern code as an infrastructure approach where you can just spice up services and it's working and it's fast and you can create the value you want. So all these things are blocked us in bringing up new services as fast as we would like to do. And also there were like 4 different platforms and all have a different order scheme and different signatures of people they had to sign per hand, and all the problems piled up that you couldn't have been like data driven because your tech is not catching up with any idea you have, because you're just solving problems that were already there. So the idea is like, how can you overcome that? And one of our ideas, like, this has to be like a continuous thing. You cannot stop at some point like you did before. You always have to be evaluating and continuously improving yourself. So the idea is like software development follows this pattern. Yeah, you're having your operating model and your culture for your team in place and maybe some stakeholders, and you're developing new services. Okay, you're having therefore your direction where this topic has to go, and you know what actions has to come out. But in the case of being data driven and going away from all the tiny services which are communicating over Excel sheets, we said we have to scale it out to make it a thing in the company. And so the idea was like, yeah, let's think big. What is needed there? So we said like, the thing is missing for everybody to go in the same direction. You need a strategy. You need a strategy, and you have to lead the transformation, and you own the transformation as a company, but always asking yourself, is it the sane way to do stuff? So always reflecting, always working like a clear-cut agile ways of working. So what we then did, like, hey guys, like, we know things are tough. Let's start at the basics. We have to define together management technology strategy. Then there has to come a technology governance to maintain high quality throughout every vendor, like every partner who's working with you. And you need the technology execution, that people have to execute all the strategy. And so there is a top-down enabling. But at the other hand, we said like the most knowledgeable people about trends and best practices on the detail level, and also about how things are communicating, are the people at the execution. So there has to be a bottom-up sanity check to really maintain that. So what we did is like define a strategy. We got this center of excellence together. We starts executing on projects. The projects are checking the decisions of the strategy, reporting basically in some way with the technology governance, and always it's important to challenge the technology strategy. Is it still up to date? Do we have to change something? Are we falling behind? So that in the end, you're having this cute picture here, like you're having a high alignment about what has to be achieved, but everybody has the biggest autonomy. So that we know we have to cross the river, but everybody has the freedom and the capacity on its own strengths and weaknesses to decide how to deliver that. And only when this is maintainable, you can go in the same direction, if everybody has the freedom to play with his own strengths. So how is this now incorporating with the overall data idea? So we said like, okay, now we're having an idea how to achieve excellence in the technology and how to stay ahead on the curve. But what is the data? Like, how do we do the layer? Like, you have to, on the data strategy, is different from a tech strategy in this point that you have to identify the strategic requirements for your organization. What I want to achieve. Then you translate that into business objectives. You can measure, you can monitor, and then you find data requirements. What do you need for that? And then in the next step, you say, okay, now we know what we need, what we want to measure, and now we have to identify the gaps we have to make that happen. And out of these things, and also like creating visibility and transparency into your data, you can think now about what is the next step to make that now as a process. So the idea was like, okay, we know we have the data somewhere. It has to go somewhere. For example, it could be a Kafka solution, could be any possible solution. Our idea way, we need a data source which has a life cycle of data. So data starts at one point and in the end it's finished. And the idea about that was like, all the services are always already taking part in this process, but now they need a clear place for doing that. So where are they pulling data? Where are they pushing data back? So they can interpret data at a certain time and enhance data at a later time. And this gives like this overview gives you the opportunity to transform the ownership of the process to the data level. The data is owning the process. How is the data coming from A to B is easier to define than purely workflows in your own companies. Then you also can think about, yeah, okay, now the data is the driving force for the service collaboration. Yes, because it's the process. But this means also that the product strategy of every product is defined by the overall process strategy. If the process has a certain strategy, all the products have to follow. And also, you need agile ways of working because you're on the way gathering new insights and adjust your tech strategy and your data strategy to always stay on course. And so everybody has to also adapt new ways of working potentially. Like some clients work waterfallish, and now you need the best autonomy for everybody involved and also introduce these kind of things. And now what is like the clear message there is also at a certain point in time of the data life cycle, you get a clear statement about the maturity of data. So data starts and ends, like it's ready. But what is the status in between? What can have been improved? So to make things more measurable in your life cycle, so you're not like in the end checking if your data is correct. Now the checking of correctness of data is placed into your life cycle. And all about that and how the process led to a lot of learnings. One of the major parts is like, we learned on the hard way that having a data strategy and a tech strategy goes hand in hand. There is no, let's start with the data strategy. We did that and it failed. And we had to reevaluate with our client, hey, this tech strategy is the thing that we should push forward. Like this is, otherwise, nobody knows how to react together. Like there is no common base to communicate. And then everybody was unsure where to start, how to start. But the best practice, also what our data scientists and data engineers told us is like, hey, start small. And it's not only a proof of concept, but it's there. But if you're like starting with small practices, everybody will see how this works. Everybody gain trust. Also, it's more measurable. If you're just saying you want to be data driven, that doesn't work. You have to find your pieces, like your business objectives I told you. And now this is what we learned, like make it clear and on the point. Also, we are not changing a company like just by having a data driven. Data driven means you're changing the whole company. Now, a lot of people who were checking data before have to trust that system. So there has to be additional layer of transparency, what the data is doing, and reevaluating this. And also, as said, like the services cannot stop there. Like you have to continuously learn about what you learn about your data, also about the new processes, about software development and data engineering. You always have to adopt, because when you stop, you're going back to the system you were before, because you have to you will face new problems that you haven't seen before, and these this way you have to be adaptive. You have to have an agile mindset. And also, it's not only top down. Like, it's not only somebody in the company says, yeah, let's make us data driven. Data driven is the goal, but how to make it to life is also, it has to be challenged by everybody involved. Are we still on the right way? Is the technology strategy the right way? Is the data strategy the right way? Are we still going in the right direction? Only if these questions are asked and really incorporate in the daily life, then you are going data driven, because then you're relying on that and not stopping at some point. And you need to define a starting strategy. So there will be a starting strategy. You have to go with something, and it doesn't have to be the perfect strategy. It can be just a strategy that works for a short time, but you have to be very fast in adopting, because you will learn along the journey how to change your company. And when you do that, you will have to adopt your whole strategy. So that, therefore, like, you have to be honest to yourself. And the ownership of the processes at the data level. So how is the data processing? But the concrete business meaning of a data fracture is still at the services that other people build. So this misconception about now the data is somewhere and it's something magical is happening is not the truth. The ownership about the process at the data level, this is you can engineer, but the meaning of the certain point in time is at the service level. And the other point is, like, when you want to become a data-driven organization, like, the whole strategy topics are one part. You also have to change your mindset about, we have to be agile, and are we really agile, and not just stating the fact we are agile. And what I can recommend is bringing in experts. We brought them from our Finnish colleagues to really help people to getting more comfortable with these types of scenarios, and it helped everybody to feel comfortable and heard in these discussions to really drive the process in this company forward. We are not finished. We are starting, as said, at a small scale, but advancing and having a lot of fun along the way. Yeah, that was me shortly presenting some thoughts about that. I hope you enjoyed my few remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christoph. That was brilliant. Very, very insightful, and very interesting. I forgot to mention at the beginning, there's a Q&A box for all the participants and attendees. If they have any questions that they would like Christoph to answer, feel free to type a question in the Q&A box at the bottom. It's at the bottom of everyone's screen, and I can run through, relay those questions to Christoph, and he can answer them. But no, myself and Michael, we've definitely got a few questions to take from that. But yeah, that was really enjoyable and very insightful, for sure. For a question from my perspective here, and you're obviously helping a client through a program of change. Generally speaking, Christoph, do you think that the clients you work with are perfectly aligned and ready for this journey, or?
The client wasn't ready for the journey. They thought they are ready for the journey. And that's fair. That's fair enough. But they were up to the challenge. I think that's far more important than being aware about all the challenges you will face. They were up for that ride, and I think now they're realizing what they started. Yeah. On the other hand, that what this means, but they're also, on the other hand, right, really liking that the things are improving. They're getting more feedback. People feeling like they can concentrate on their most important tasks more, and like don't have to worry so much about, is the data correct actually? Like, this is like, what are the biggest challenges we already start to
Yeah, okay, interesting. So if, for instance, if you were able to wave like a magic wand for all your clients that you've worked with, that would give them an extra resource or an insight, maybe an extra hire or something that could, I suppose, benefit to get this data-driven process, what would you do, I suppose, or what would it be?
I think it's only one thing: stay brave. Like they started, and they know it's important, and what they also do, they mean what they say. Like, it's not only just some words. They're investing highly in that. I have a feeling due to Corona that maybe it's cracking in the sense of maybe is it really worth we beforehand made our business? But when they stay the course and stay brave all through the challenges, I think that could be a really good thing. And even though it maybe starts now with 1 or 2 or 3 departments, it has potential to grow more.
Okay. I think we've
Oh,
got sorry, I was just going to say.
so yeah, we've got a question from Jerome as well. But I was going to ask you. You mentioned there, Christoph, that bring in there needs to be this culture change and bring experts in. So do you feel like bringing? I suppose what are the options around that? So obviously we've got looking at bringing in a kind of external company like Futuris or something like that, or looking at bringing in maybe like a permanent resource or something like that. I mean, what do you think would be a good route or the right sort of person to bring in an expert, or perhaps a combination of the two, or what are your thoughts around that?
I think there are like two things to consider. So I am always up for clients also taking responsibility about some things internally. This is important to drive the process along the way. You cannot always rely on externals as they come and go, and that's fine. It's giving you new input. That's okay. But on the other hand, you need the knowledge inside your house. What does this mean? What is the process actually about? What have been decided there? Who's understanding our systems? And these challenges are like so diverse. Like, and our client sees the challenge more in about like we're needing our vendors first aligned, and then increasing our own IT capacity, and maybe finding people who support us on a point. I think in this industry there will be coming up more opportunities for freelancers as well. Like we're needing on point capacity and knowledge about people who are helping us with specific problems. And I think the companies will still rely on agencies that providing that for them because they lack the capacity of doing that. And it's highly expensive for them hiring people who then maybe after 6 or 7 years not like really fitting into the maintenance of products and resources.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Interesting.
Jerome's question was, Christoph, how do you enforce such a data-driven process so one client is not the other and you would not like to reinvent the wheel?
Yeah, there are like two things. Like there's one thing about getting everybody on board and explaining what is the happening, what is the benefits for them. But on the other hand, we don't have to kid ourselves. Like our client is paying not only us, it's also paying other vendors. So when the big client says, yeah, you have to change that or you're out, they don't say it like that, but the underlying message is pretty much clear that this is the direction we go. Either you are with us or you're not there.
Yeah,
it's a hard way, but in the end, like they are not want to spend too much effort when somebody is not willing to adopt to their needs.
I think this is quite fitting leading on to the next question actually from Marco. So his question is data strategy and the tech strategy led by the same people, and why didn't they go together in the first place?
There are like some historical reasons. That tech strategy is something we pushed for the client a little bit earlier, before like this whole data-driven thing was on a C-level decided. So we made this in our department where we have a lot of contacts. There are more visible strategy together with others. But it took over, but like the driving partners were not like the super on board every time. Like it was hard. It's like you're fighting against internal structures. And then the idea of a data structure comes to life, and the people were super hyped. Yeah, finally data structure and data driven. And like we weren't like guys like we should think twice. But the process started, and the people were excited, and maybe they were a little bit too excited, and this led to this diversion between why didn't we do it together. We learned that was a fast approach, but we at Futurize always believe in, hey, rather start suboptimal, but start but because when you wait until you have the perfect solution, you're waiting until tomorrow and so on.
Okay. So Leighton Stevens says, good presentation, Christoph, thank you. Who manages the data strategy, and should this come from the client?
There is like not telling, yeah, I can tell a little bit of details. Like there, the client strategy is owned by the client, and there is like a back office kind of type of from us on another vendor, which are like supporting that, like defining the day-to-day, what is happening, what is like here. Not so much in a reporting manner, it's more about how can we facilitate this whole strategy, how can we help support finding the business value there, and also what is the hidden business value. Sometimes you see data and don't know what is happening there. A good example is we had a client where we found out, like, knowing about if a certain product of them has problems was determined about how often a certain user group at their company is checking in data in their data source. How, like, more often they did, then more likely it was and on production side a problem. So, and identifying this is like more our day-to-day business, but the strategy and the owning of the strategy should relay the client, like they should own that, they should drive that, because otherwise you don't have the buy-in of people and the money.
Okay, thank you. Melanie asked, what key metrics did you improve by transforming to a data-driven / data-informed organization?
That's, I have to really phrase it carefully. What we did, like the client had a problem with some of their like they are measuring only the output takeaway of the product basically, and also the rate of how much of the product is not sellable. And this is like the most key metrics. And the thing that we did is like the first thing we concentrated in on a certain point of quality of the product. We said we want to improve that part, like the data is clear and transparent from A to B, and they are reducing, like, let's say like a product is not too heavy, for example. So we reduced that metric and concentrated on that in the first part, and now other parts are going with it. But the client sees only the take rates and the things that are having too less quality. That's the two main drivers there.
Okay, great. What would you say is the biggest challenge for the client's sort of permanent or internal workforce as like the consultancy like you guys sort of work through the door, you know, as the project goes or continues?
I think really adjusting to agile ways of working, that they're like super unsure about to whom I have to report now, like to nobody, like just do your job. like it will take care of itself. Like nobody has to write a report to somebody who never reads the report. Like, why? And I think this habit of doing that is the biggest challenge, especially for people who are trying to make their career, or like at the beginning, like trying to make their way up, and like unsure how they are being measured. Like you're like in these big corporations, they're earning good money, rightfully so. That's all fine. But what the problem having there is how to measure people's success, and people are super insecure. They can't trust each other. Like I can trust my peer left and right to me, but how do I trust people evaluating me on my career? And stripping people away from the duty and then freeing them to concentrating on their problem is the biggest challenge they face in their mind. Also the ownership. So the ownership transfers from an Excel sheet that lies whatever somewhere on the shared folder to a person who's doing something on a product. And this ownership doesn't mean that they are like getting fired. It's more about you can shape the outcome. So it's if emphasizing the positive things about agile ways of working and the positive things about shaping up the product.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think final question from me. Considering the change of culture that's required within this data-driven process, is the talent pool still going to be sort of fit for purpose thereafter?
Sorry, I didn't.
So considering the change of the culture that's required, becoming more agile, working with the internal team, and obviously the consultancy may be a mixture of externals as well. So would you say the talent pool is still going to be fit for purpose like afterwards, once the data-driven process has been implemented?
Like when I would say that people are not able to learn new things, that would be hard. Like then it would be hard. But we're seeing people are able to change. And like there was the fear of people like being more elderly. Like that sounds offensive. People like work in the company for 30, 40 years. How are they reacting to change? And actually they are the first adopters. They're saying, finally, this nonsense has to go. They are the early adopters because they are pretty much more sure about the work. And I think the talent pool will grow with the challenges because people now see the benefits of, I can concentrate on my main task, and all the tasks I didn't like are now a little bit less. And I think the talent pool is not so much changing, more the to have the courage to accept these changes.
Okay. It's interesting, Chris, to say, because what we're certainly experiencing now, across the board with our clients, and certainly from a recruitment perspective, I mean, look, every single business there is, it doesn't matter if you've been around for 250 years or, if you founded your company in April, in May, in the middle of lockdown, everybody's got to change. So every company, every person in the workforce really has got, they've got to evolve or die effectively, so and that's, I think, people are now, I think, pretty much every single person, doesn't matter whether you've been in the business 30 years or 5 minutes, they know you've got to evolve and change in order to thrive. So I think, with all this, the kind of, the idea of culture change and the idea of, putting in more agile processes and really shifting everything, I think moving forward, COVID is just, one of the benefits is going to have just sped up this whole process, and companies and individuals as well, I think, are going to be much more willing to change and adapt a lot more quickly than they would have been 4 months ago. Because I think that's a real positive.
I see one challenge there that we should not forget about, that is if a change goes faster and hopefully people are enjoying the ride there, but the caring part about people is getting more and more and more important. For every company, how do we know that in this process we are not losing ourselves or feeling uncomfortable? How do we ensure that? I think that's a challenge that human care, human resources, or whatever you want to call it, or recruiters have to care about. How do we ensure that? Because it's so important, and it's so easy to lose track of that, because somebody can get lost in when you are more autonomous in your own work.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. Well, I think, from that's the Q&A part. Looks like, unless there's any other questions, if there are, feel free to put them in. One not written, not a question, but Goran, just to mention here, said thank you very much for the presentation, Chris. Christoph, some nice feedback there. Before we sort of move on and sort of look to finish up, we've got a bit of a fun poll, I suppose, to launch, just a couple of questions. So I'm going to launch the first one of that now.
Stop sharing.
Hope that's good. Can everyone see that? So first question, has everybody enjoyed working more remotely? Let's have a look. So far, yes. I don't know if you can see the polling's still going at the moment, but so far, yes, is winning out pretty much almost 100% at the moment. Let's have a look. Can you see this, Jack and Chris? Can you see the poll? Is it showing on the screen at all?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got 89% yes and 11% saying no. So we'll end that one. So that's, I think that's what we could have expected really from that. I think that there's a lot of people, it's given a lot more flexibility, and the ability to work remotely has been well received, I think, across the board. Now the last one, let's have a look. Let's close this one down, and then the second one. I launch this now? So our second question, although it's been enjoyable and it's been a positive for a lot of people, obviously there has been challenges, I think, all around. So if we launch this one, so what has been your biggest challenge recently? Specifically geared towards whilst working in lockdown. Now I've actually added one at the bottom here, which is an unstable internet connection, which is, as we see right at the start of the, I would have said working from home whilst also managing the children, but I think I'll put it down to unstable internet connection. And can we see those ones? Jack, can you see those? You seeing the results come through?
Sorry, no, I can't actually at the moment. I'm waiting for it.
Well, let me end this. Hold on. Okay, see if I'll publish the results. Let's have a look. Can everyone see this now? Sharon? So, as you suggested, Christoph, earlier when we looked to put these questions down, what are the biggest challenges? I mean, you mentioned the fact, obviously, missing the interaction, working directly with your team, and that comes in many forms. Have you got any? That's an interesting point. Have you got anything to mention on that point at all, Christoph?
Yeah, I can share. It's nice to work close with the team. I always enjoyed that the most, and I think we're human. We are as humans are social creatures. We love to interact with other people. So. Not so much so surprising, but I think a lot of people also crushed it, work. But yeah, it's also important how much family you have around you. I think a lot of people are feeling that when you are having no partner or families at a distance, it's way more hard.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Jack, I mean, I think look, Christoph, it's been really insightful. I think it's been a really interesting, insight into working with this particular customer and this moving to this data-driven environment. If I've got a few takeaways from this, I made a few notes. Obviously, you're going into a client with quite antiquated systems, working from Excel sheets. Really, there's very little structure, very little transparency and trust. And in that environment, it is really difficult to be data driven because the tech is outdated. And so by moving forward, putting a plan in place, getting people aligned, getting people working with real autonomy, everyone's got to buy into this effectively. It can't just be a top-down directive. Everybody needs to be on board and have input. And ultimately, there needs to be a real big change in the culture. So whether that's bringing in agile processes and other lots of different elements, and that might well mean bringing in some experts, most likely to help with that transition and help with that change. And obviously, we discussed there's a number of different ways and perhaps combination of different methods in which to do that. So I found it really insightful, really interesting. Jack, anything to add to that before we hand back to Christoph to hand off?
No, I totally agree. I second, what you said there, and yeah, you gave a real insight. Obviously, couldn't name the client specifically, that's understood on that. But no, it's very interesting, and there's some really key topics that were covered, and I think a lot of people can relate to it, I suppose. And you mentioned everyone does, even whether it's someone who's been at a company for a number of years. Some people I've spoken to refer to them as dinosaurs, but maybe that's one way of putting it. But yeah, whether it's new people starting as well, it's all relevant now. Very insightful, and yeah, thanks once again for that.
Christoph,
thank you for having me.
We'll give you the last word if you want to say anything before we finish up.
Thank you for having me. It was fun talking to you, everybody. Nice, awesome questions there. I hope you're still all doing fine. Stay healthy, and enjoy cake if you can. It's always good.
Yeah, you've got to love a bit of cake. Well, and thank you everyone for joining in and coming attending the webinar. Thanks for your questions. Yeah, this will be available as a recording, which will be sent out to all of you. So if you want to, Christoph, obviously you can distribute that. If you want to get a record of anybody, you can send that around to your colleagues as well. So that's it. Thanks very much, and yeah, have a good afternoon, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Take care, everyone.